So we have one more speaker on our docket tonight, and we are lucky to have Shira McDermott joining us today. And so Shira is an entrepreneur and award-winning food blogger. She co-founded Flourist in 2014 with her business partner, Jana Bishop. And for those who don't know, Flourist is a dry goods company with a focus on premium Canadian products purchased directly from farmers and delivered directly to consumers across North America. They opened up a 2,800 square foot mill and bakery in East Vancouver in August 2019, where they produce their own flour for their bread and baked goods, focusing on sourdough baking methods. They also offer classes, and Shira creates all of the content for her vegetarian recipe blog called In Pursuit of More. So please welcome Shira as she shares her entrepreneurship story, and it's so great to have you with us.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Leslie.
There we go. I will turn the floor over to you.
Fabulous. Well, I first want to, is there feedback here? Hopefully not. Yeah, I just want to start off by saying that Jen and I own and operate our business, and I am speaking to you today from unceded traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I wanted to also just say going last is really quite incredible. Listening to all of the stories today have been amazing. I think you're all incredibly brave. And as we know, entrepreneurship is kind of a hard path. And it is especially hard for women. So yeah, I think the stories were amazing and I'm really glad to be here. So yeah, the intro kind of covered it. I'm Shira McDermott. I co-founded Flourist with my best friend and business partner, another fellow woman, in 2014. We are a Vancouver-based direct-to-consumer dry goods and fresh flour brand. We started the company to essentially disrupt the dry goods industry as people become more conscious about where their food is sourced from. We identified, a pretty big gap in this kind of big part of our food supply that had kind of yet to be tackled in terms of, it's very opaque. If you imagine going to buy flour in the grocery store or visiting even your local health food store for your dry goods, if you're buying chickpeas or lentils, you're often just faced with really kind of mysterious bulk bins. And we realized there was an opportunity to provide people with access to not only better quality products, but products that they could actually feel a connection to. So we provide a direct line to all the family farmers that we work with in our sourcing. So today we have two locations. We have our mill and bakery located in East Vancouver, and we have a headquarters which has a second mill. We have a mill at the mill and bakery where we mill all of the flour that we use at that location to bake with. And then we have our second location, which is our warehouse where we ship our flour and the rest of our products to homes all across North America. It's been a super fun journey, especially this past year, which has been an adventure to say the least. But today we're super proud. We have a team of 30 people, which, at times it's actually quite shocking to imagine that we started this company from nothing when it was just the two of us, and to see where we've come in, just 7 years. So I always kind of appreciate these opportunities to kind of stop and reflect a little bit. And it was very interesting listening to the stories up to this point, because you always kind of see glimmers of, perhaps your own story or a thread or a common thread that can happen when people, are the types to start and run their own businesses. Melanie, I particularly resonated with a lot of your earlier stories. I too left home at 16. And going back, when I think about my own relationship to entrepreneurship, it can kind of seem messy, I think, when you look back on your life. But when I really do kind of think about all the things that led me to this point, you realize that it's kind of been a bit of a straight shot for me. At least I did when I looked at it. So I was raised on Gabriola Island, Gulf Island, just off of Nanaimo. My parents were homesteader hippies in the 70s. They kind of gave up a conventional life, dropped out of university to go and live on a tiny island in the middle of nowhere and raise 4 children on a single acre of land. My father was not a day job kind of guy. Neither one of them were. My father was an artist, a painter, and he somehow managed to raise us on what he made from selling paintings. And my mom was home, and so my earliest years were spent eating off the land, eating vegetarian. We ate that way for both financial and ethical reasons, and so I was exposed very early to how easy it was to feed lots of people off of very basic, healthy, seasonal food, both from a seasonal perspective, from vegetables, but also just from eating from a pantry of dry goods, chickpeas, lentils, whole wheat flour. We did not eat white flour. And, brown rice, lots of nutritional yeast. So by the time I was 16, I was definitely done with island living. I have always been, quite ambitious and, also very disruptive. I wanted to kind of do my own thing. So having been discouraged from, following traditional methods of, seeking higher education, I moved to Vancouver, and I immediately wanted to find a role in the health food industry and learn all about that. So that was 1994. And I stayed in the specialty grocery business for 13 years until 2007. And during that time, I was able to start a family. It was a great experience, and I pretty much learned everything to do with the inner workings of the grocery business, from learning how to read a profit and loss statement, to hiring and managing a team, to working with vendors, and things like merchandising, which I still love doing. After 13 years, I was definitely ready to kind of go on and try something else. My kids were young. They were just kind of at an age where I could make a move comfortably. So I went and got a totally different job. My husband is a salesperson and was a salesperson back then. So I landed an outside sales role with what was then a very small, up and coming East Vancouver-based coffee brand. Some of you may recognize it. It was JJ Bean. And in 2007, they only had a few locations, and I was their first ever sales rep. So I spent the next 6 years kind of entrenching myself in the restaurant business. I had spent 13 years in retail. And next thing I knew, I spent the next 6 years setting up coffee programs for specialty cafes and some of the better restaurants here in the city. I met a lot of people, and I gained a lot of skills from that experience. And in addition to just the skills, spending that time in the coffee business, especially the specialty coffee business during that time, actually laid a lot of the foundations for how Jana and I pieced together the concept for Flourist. If you think about the specialty coffee world, now it's very commonplace for us to either travel, back when we could travel, to, find, a quality coffee shop that isn't just kind of serving your basic stuff. And now we kind of have this, understanding that fresher coffee is better, freshly roasted coffee is better. And it was that kind of thinking that really informed what Jana and I would later do when we were planning Flourist. During the time that I was selling coffee, I actually really needed a creative outlet. And so I started a nonprofit. This nonprofit was geared at actually, helping people eat better, shock. And I started teaching weekly cooking classes in the downtown east side, and really trying to showcase to people how easy it was to eat well, and to cook simple meals that didn't cost a lot, and that were super accessible from, an execution standpoint. that led to me posting those recipes for the families on the internet. And that was right when, plant-based cooking was starting to kind of take off online, and a few of my recipes got a lot of traction, kind of accidentally. And I really liked it. It was super fun, and I also really enjoyed creating the photos that went with sharing those recipes, and that's turned into actually my job now. I do the content for Flourist, so that's it was very organic how that happened. So fast forward to 2013. I had met Jana a few years prior to that. We had connected over our mutual love of food, and she had actually shared that her stepfather is a wheat and lentil farmer in Saskatchewan. And having grown up the way that I did and being so involved in the food business, to actually know someone who grew this, like a lentil or a chickpea, just completely blew my mind. It was something that I just never thought was possible. And that led to me learning just a ton about Canadian agriculture and who is growing the food that the world eats. And that was all through Jana. It was shortly after that she pitched to me, actually. She had this idea for quite a long time, knowing the, terrible access that we had to kind of the good stuff, because most of the best products, that includes bread, wheat, and dry goods, get exported to other markets. Canadian products are in huge demand. So we set about planning the business. We launched in 2015 and started out supplying our restaurant friends just with the dry goods. And then in 2017, after lots of fighting with the city, we finally got permission to start our mill and start milling flour. We didn't want to sell any of our products in grocery stores just because it has a very short shelf life, and we mill to order. And so we started an online store. So that was my first experience running an online store. While we were doing that, we were actually planning to open the mill and bakery, which we have now. And we, after months and months and months of hard work, got that open in August of 2019. It was great. It was such a fun experience. It was so hard and so challenging, but so rewarding. And so 6 months after that, when we were just starting to find our footing, of course, COVID hit. And with just a couple of days' notice, we decided that rather than close, and we really didn't want to have to lay off our staff, and we wanted to continue to provide our products to our customers, we launched an online store concept that would carry us through until now. And so for the last year, we've been operating our regular online store, and we are fully online with the mill and bakery. And it's just been a fun and wild ride this last year. But I hope that, it's very interesting. I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't follow, a typical path, at least, from the stories that I've heard. And it's really cool to hear how those common threads of just following your passion, and sometimes not always necessarily having a plan, can just lead you to somewhere that's really great and really fulfilling. And I feel very blessed to be here and to have the opportunity to share this with everybody tonight. Thanks.
Shira, thank you so much for sharing your story there. I know we got Leslie jumping on. I think her internet connection's a little spotty, so we'll just hang tight. So I'm sure she has a couple questions to ask you in a moment here.
Okay, great. I'll stay on.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Okay.
Great. Yes, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It was unbelievable. I love what we've heard tonight of the path that makes sense when you get to where you're at, but wasn't necessarily where you thought it might end up or how it might go, sort of the nonlinear side of things. So I guess one question for you based on that is, what advice would you have for anyone coming up, pursuing their own journey, not quite sure if this is going to work or not? What gave you the confidence to sort of to jump in and say, yes, I know enough about this or things around this to make it happen?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, if you know Janet and I, we're two of the most like stubborn people that have ever existed. You can't knock us off anything. And there's kind of a running joke that there was just no way in hell that either one of us was going to let a pandemic bring our business down. But even before that, you know, I mean, to fight with the city, it was the first time anyone had ever tried to get a flour mill up and running. Nobody at the city even knew what that was. And so I think you just have to really, you know, tell yourself that you've got to see it through, because it's so tempting to want to quit when you're up against what feels like impossible circumstances. And Jana and I, from, you know, that early tale of the mill, we went through it a second time when we opened our location. We had nothing but, you know, permit struggles, and just kind of like one challenge after another. But I think you kind of have to see it as a bit of a game, and a game that you're just not going to lose.
I like it. And we had, I guess, Kim's question of any tips on seeing your past experiences as assets if they're not directly related.
Yeah, I mean, that's also an incredible question. One of the things that I've been really thinking a lot about lately is, well, first of all, I mean, I come from the school of there are no mistakes, only lessons, pure and simple. Every single circumstance that's handed to you, you can either turn it into a win for yourself in the form of, you know, growth and learning and figuring out why that happened to you. You know, I've never been one to really subscribe to any type of victim mentality. But one of the things that really, I think, has been sitting with me a lot lately, now that we have this big team, and, you know, I laugh all the time because people say, you know, oh, I'm an entrepreneur because I can't work for anybody, you know. And yeah, a lot of that's true. You know, when you're somebody that's kind of like, no, I got to go my own way, I can't work for people. But at the end of the day, you're like, oh no, I don't like working with people. And then, you know, when you get to this stage and you have a team of 30 people, and the only way that you're going to be successful is to actually challenge yourself to take all those lessons that you've had with people in the past and figure out how you're actually going to inspire a team and get the best out of a team. And you know, there's lots of levels when you grow a company to the size that we're at now. And so I think it's just kind of ironic that the one thing you think, you know, maybe is the reason why you're doing this in the first place is the one thing you actually kind of end up having to get really good at.
Yeah, it is. The irony is fantastic.
Yeah, so. Definitely.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It's been a pleasure to hear about you and learn about your business.
Thank you so much, Leslie, and thanks to everyone again. It's been really fun to be part of this event.